Greetings. This is Arvat McLean with Speak, the Universe Listens. As a very young person, I always felt that I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders, having to make grown-up decisions in order to survive a life marked by physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. While my face was smiling on the outside, on the inside I was secretly crying and miserable. However, over the years, I learned some gems that helped to turn my life around. I now get to live the life of my dreams, filled with love, travel, and wonderment. And I am absolutely passionate about sharing what I have learned with you. If you want to live your best life, tune in each week as I, along with some awesome guests, share these life-changing gems with you. Inspired to be more, do more, have more. Greetings. Today's topic is less mess, less stress. Today we have in the studio with us once again Amanda Scudder of Abundance Organizing, and she helps people get their lives in order by getting rid of the clutter in their homes. Thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me back.
Yes. So talk to us a little bit how you ended up in this position or in this field.
It's kind of an interesting story. I started out very early on wanting to be in interior design, and I went to college for that and quickly discovered that I didn't have quite the focus I needed at 17 to go into that field. So I just started taking classes that I thought were interesting, and that led me into an undergraduate degree in psychology, which led me to a degree in social work.
Okay.
So I moved to Virginia, went to VCU, got my master's, and went to work in human services. And I did that for quite a long time, had a desk job and helped agencies in the entire greater Richmond area learn how to measure what they did and report that to volunteers and donors. It was interesting, but when my kids came along, I took some time off to be home with them and really discovered that I like to be out in the world.
Okay.
It was really hard to go back to a desk job after that.
Okay.
And I wasn't really happy doing what I was doing. I felt like I didn't have my hands on the actual change I was looking to make. I was twice removed from the changes that we were trying to accomplish. And so I was trying very hard to make myself fit into a job that was not right for me, and worked with an amazing life coach who helped me develop the resiliency to realize that I could do other things. And I started really listening to my heart, but the universe had to knock me over the head. So I lost my job because I was not willing to give up that easily. And when I lost my job, I said, I'm going to do only those things that really speak to me.
Wow.
And so I started volunteering and helping people. And I'll go backwards just a little bit. When I turned 40, decided to go on a women's retreat with, there were two facilitators that I knew and a third that I didn't know. The third that I didn't know ended up being the woman who was my life coach.
Okay.
And while I was there, I met a woman who we just formed an instant friendship and stayed in touch. And when I was going through this transition period, I was just looking to spend my time doing something. And she said, well, I worked with an organizer, but I can't have her back right now, and I still have so many needs. Like, is that something you'd be interested in? I was like, I would love to do that. So I spent the day with her, helping her get unstuck, and that's the best description for it. It was finding those places in her household where things weren't flowing and helping just tackle those things, giving her the energy and the power to get through it. And at the end of the day, I said, this is what I want to do.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know organizing was a thing.
Okay.
I mean, I had no idea that people did this for a career. So I reached out to the woman that she had worked with, and it's a really embracing field. It's kind of interesting. It's not a super competitive industry. It's people really helping each other get into it. So she had coffee with me and was willing to let me shadow with her and figure out what I needed to do to set up my own business.
Okay.
And before that happened, I had filled out an application online with the company that I now work for, Abundance Organizing. And when I interviewed with them, what I really was attracted to was the team approach. So I had had a great team in my nonprofit experience and thought I'd never have that again. Well, this company gives me an opportunity to work with other organizers who have the same passion, the same commitment, the same core values, and change lives in a really big way because we can go in and do massive projects. We can have 6 organizers in a house for a day and really get a lot done.
Wow. Yeah.
It just depends on how quickly people like to work. We can also go slow, one-on-one. But I loved that team approach, and I loved how we're stronger together than we are separately. And got to be a part of the core values exercise where we identified what it was that really made us who we were as a company and as individuals and as a team. And that was so illuminating. And it's become really informative in all of our operations. So highly recommend a core values exercise.
Wow.
But that's sort of how I ended up doing something I didn't even know was a career possibility. And the more I've done it, I've now been doing this for 6 years, it is absolutely what I was called to do. And I had no idea how all the pieces fit together until I saw at the end, wow, I mean, my human service background, my psychology training, my social work training, my interest in interiors,
Yes.
all my systems work, building coalitions, it all comes together. And one of the interesting side notes on that is knowing all the human service providers in the area gives me a real edge with clients who are looking for that very specific place to make their donation, because they want to let something go, but they want to make sure it's going to the right place. And I know so many great agencies that can benefit, so I can really help connect.
You know, you just touched on so many different things. So one thing you mentioned being helping your friend be unstuck in certain areas. But I also heard in your story that you actually had to get unstuck.
Exactly.
And once you got unstuck, then things began to flow in a way that you would love them to flow.
Yes.
Yes, so that's a beautiful...
That's an interesting observation, because, I really was very stuck, and it took some amazing women helping me through that stuck period to be able to get to the other side. And when I did, you're right, all of a sudden I had the energy to help somebody else and pay that forward.
And then also that you mentioned that all of the things in your past came to play in order to have this beautiful picture of doing exactly what it is that you want to do. And a lot of times we may not realize why we're doing certain things, and then when you look back and you're like, oh, that's why I was doing that, preparing me for this exact moment here. So I enjoyed that story.
And it's all about listening. My sister gave me the best advice during that period. She said, if something gives you knots, say no. If it gives you butterflies, say yes. And that has been the best guiding advice I could ever share with anyone.
Yeah, I love that. If it's not, say no. And if it's butterflies, say yes. I like that a lot. So in terms of less mess equaling less stress, talk to us a little bit about that.
So what I've noticed is that as our physical environments come under our control and contain things that we love, use, appreciate, value, our days are less stressful because we're not having to make all sorts of micro decisions to just get to the point of what am I going to wear today? What am I going to eat today? How am I going to find my car through the garage that's full of stuff? And I've actually done a little bit of reading about this because I'm so intrigued about the way the brain works, because what we do as organizers is really a lot about emotions and thought processes and ingrained behaviors. And there's something called decision fatigue that plays a big part in that. So the fewer decisions you have to make during the day, the more energy you have, and it actually translates to more willpower to accomplish what you want. And so what I've done is sort of helped people walk through their day and find where they're getting stuck, where they're getting hung up, where the decisions are overwhelming, and figure out strategies that can be applied to almost any household to get those things calm and decluttered so that you have so much less stress, and at the end of the day you have the energy to eat well and exercise and meditate and be mindful and all the stuff that we really should be doing for self-care.
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit more about decision fatigue.
Okay, so decision fatigue is where the brain actually uses energy for every decision that we have to make. And they've done research that shows this. In fact, they did an interesting study with judges who were on parole boards. And in the morning, judges were vastly more likely to grant parole than they were as it got closer to lunchtime. And then after lunch, and they'd had a rest period and some food, they went back up to their morning levels of aptness for granting parole. And by the end of the day, it plummeted again. And what they've found is that it's that combination of just being tired, having too many decisions thrown at you, and losing the energy from making those decisions that causes your brain to go into kind of a shutdown mode and say, either I'm going to take the path of least resistance and do what's easiest, picking up fast food on the way home instead of making the healthy meal, or I'm going to do nothing. I'm just going to not make a decision.
Right.
And so that's what was happening in these judges' brains, is they were just not making a decision because they were too fatigued mentally to think through all the permutations of what would happen if they did grant parole. So they just took the course of, well, we're just going to keep things the way they are. So people's lives are actually changed by this phenomenon, and I see it in clients and in myself all the time. And we've actually realized as a team of organizers that our own brains get fatigued and we need to recharge. And we've found that our lunch break is absolutely sacred. We need to take that break away, because it gives our brains time to just rest and recharge so that we can help our clients make the best decisions. And then about 3 o'clock, we need something that involves chocolate and protein because we need that fuel again. I mean, we're as organizers making a lot of decisions along with the client about where things should go and who should be working on what piece of the project. So I'm fascinated by the subject, and what I've started to equate it to for clients is, like, how many people walk in their closet and it's full of clothes and they say, I have nothing to wear.
Exactly.
Like every time, right? Because there's too many things to think about. There's clothes that don't fit. There's clothes that are itchy. There's clothes that still have the tags on them. You bought them because they were on sale and you thought they would look good, but they really didn't when you got them home, and it's too late to return them. There's all those things that are going through your brain when you walk in your closet. But if you take the time to get rid of all that chatter, all that noise, and just have your friends, the ones that fit and flatter and feel good on you, then when you walk in, there's so many fewer decisions. So you start your day ahead of the game, right? You've already given yourself more willpower and more energy for all the important stuff. So that's where I think clutter can play a really big role in helping people to have that less stress, just getting rid of the mess and giving them space.
Yeah, so that's so interesting, because I know I used to spend, in order to get ready, I would kind of say, okay, I need an hour to get ready, because probably like 20 minutes of it I was trying on
Yes, does it still
outfits.
fit? Does it have a stain?
Exactly. And then I have a pile of clothes thrown in my chair because they didn't fit, or they look kind of crazy. And so, but now I don't do that, because I actually went through and I got rid of just about everything. I mean, literally, I think I own about 3 pairs of pants.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. It's like a capsule wardrobe, and everything in there fits.
Yes, exactly.
It's a game changer.
Yeah, and so I don't have to even start getting ready until 30 minutes before I have to go, which makes a big difference. But what is important to me with what you just said is that 30 minutes that I didn't spend may help me make a good food decision later on.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it's connected, but it really is.
So, so just the whole ideal of less decisions can help you to have better willpower, can help you to think things through more clearly in other parts of your life.
Yeah, and save time, actually create time for things like meditation or prayer, or just taking a walk to clear your head. I mean, when you have those extra 30 minutes, there's a lot you can do with that that's beneficial for you.
Exactly. So in terms of that, let's just go right into that. So I know you had mentioned when you were talking to me before about just the whole idea of the things that cleaning, clearing, decluttering your home can open up for you. So what are some of those things?
Space and energy and time for possibilities. So when you have a clear surface, it's an invitation to take action on something that you intentionally want to do. But if when you approach that surface, it's covered with yesterday's and the day before and last week's mail and the kids' lunchboxes and, a set of keys and a pair of socks and whatever else has landed there, you have to think through decision fatigue, think through what to do with all of those things before that space is clear enough to open up the possibilities. So by creating space, you do create time and energy for the things you want to do. You can all of a sudden have time for your crafting. You can have time to do that baby book that your 22-year-old never got. You have time to do all sorts of amazing things, or to volunteer and give back and do the things that are important.
And I find that when things are cluttered, there's really no space for more things to come in. And when you open space, or when you clear, and it's really, we're talking about physical things, but it also, it comes into your energetic field. And so when you clear those physical things, you're also clearing your energetic field, and then it allows for more things to pour into you. And it allows for you to be able to hear better. A lot of times when your environment is cluttered, your attention is going on all those things, and then you can't hear.
Yes, yes, you've nailed it.
Yeah.
Stuff really does talk to you, and it's really interesting. The more in tune you get with the stuff, and the more of the stuff in your house is really only that serves you, you start to hear the stuff that doesn't even louder. And I have a perfect example. To get my certification that I achieved for working with people with challenging disorganization, I had to actually hire an organizer to come and work in my home with me so that I would have the experience and know what that was like. And she happened to be a specialist in feng shui, which is one of the things that I liked about her. I was interested in having that brought into my house. And so she gave me some advice, particularly on my home office. And I followed the advice, and I set up my home office to be exactly as she'd recommended. And it felt really good. And in fact, that first night, my son came home, and he'd been at school all day, and he sat down, he's like, oh, I like this. Can I do my homework here? I said, sure. So he did. He pulled out his history assignment, which wasn't due for like 3 weeks.
Really?
Did the entire thing right then and there. And it was, it was a combination of the space was there, it felt good, he could really get settled in. And I was like, that's powerful. I mean, that feng shui really works. But what I noticed was that something was off for me. Something was off. And I one day woke up and realized it was the chair that I had still had in my office was from a job I had not been happy in. And I had brought it home with me. It was my chair. And it still had that energy about it. And it was, I could hear it now. I could hear that negative energy. And I said, well, why am I keeping this stupid chair? So I got rid of it and brought in a chair that had meaning in a positive way for me. And that's another thing I think about going through this process of going through your stuff is recognizing a lot of stuff we keep for bad reasons, things that make us feel bad.
Yeah.
And that is so draining. I mean, people keep gifts because they were given, and the giver never intended it to be a burden, but they feel guilty letting it go. And, or that thing that's associated with that relationship that went sour, but you just can't quite part with it, even though every time you look at it, you think about the fighting and the tension. And so I think that the more you can really listen and free up that space to listen, the more your stuff will tell you. And it'll guide you. It'll help you find your path and where you're supposed to be going.
Yeah. You know, I used to work like really, really hard, and I wasn't happy doing that hard work. And I went away for about 3 years. And when I came back, I was a totally different person. And so I had a closet full of clothes that I had worked that old job in. And I wanted to actually burn everything because I'm like, it has all the negative energy that's associated with that. Then I decided I didn't want to donate it because I felt like my negative energy would be donated along with the clothes. So I ended up putting the clothes in like a yard sale, and then just saying if it spoke to them, then they could take the clothing versus me putting my negative energy on. But what do you think about that in terms of letting things go that maybe have bad energy for you, but you're passing it on to someone else? So what do you think about that?
It's really interesting because I do know especially if you're particularly attuned to sensing energy, that you can pick up somebody's negative energy off of something that they've gotten rid of or haven't gotten rid of. But what I do think is if you're doing it intentionally with that sort of release that we talked about, where you're actually putting it back out into the universe as a cathartic thing, it's a healing thing for you, then I think that kind of changes the energy of the item. So it's no longer about that negative for you, it's about the positive healing that you're doing. And so you've imparted that thing. You're saying, now go bless somebody else because I don't need you. I'm in a better place. I'm healthier. I'm happier. You can go and do what you need to do for someone else. And I do think that kind of, it's like a smudging. It clears the air a bit.
Okay, I enjoyed that. That's very interesting. And I never would have given decluttering so much energy just thinking about it, but you have really brought a whole new perspective to the ideal of decluttering.
I was going to say, it sounds like you intuitively knew, though, when you were going through that, that was something that was going to help you.
Yeah. It did, and it made a lot of difference. And I think what I always realized is whenever, let's say if I clean the closet, I always just felt like, and then I'm the type of person that I clean, and then I have to stand back and look at it and admire, like, wow, what a
It just feels good.
yeah,
walking
it
in
does.
the
It
space.
feels really good.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference, and it does. It opens that space because now, similar to your son wanting to actually do his assignment 3 weeks early,
Yeah.
now I feel like creating. I feel like, okay, what's next? What can I do?
Yeah.
And it is actually energizing.
I agree. And I do work with people that aren't quite there yet. And we talk a lot about readiness for change. And so you were really ready and embracing that change that was coming into your life. Sometimes that change can be a little harder to embrace. And so what I do try to do for people who are in that place is just to hold that vision for them of what they want, and really keep it focusing back, talking about the last time we spoke about that abundance mentality. Like, what is it that you want to achieve? Not what are you getting rid of, but what do you want to achieve, and how is this going to get you there? And that clear surface is full of possibilities. So,
Yeah. So, and then also, I think just the whole process. Like, how can you, once someone works with you, and I think you mentioned that it's not a one and done deal. So, how does a person continue to keep their space organized?
So that goes back to habits and routines, and habits and routines are hard to change. And so if you've been in a habit of dropping things in a certain way as you come in the door, or procrastinating on laundry or dishes or any of those decisions that have to be made on a daily basis, it can be really challenging to change the behaviors. So even if you get rid of the stuff, if you don't focus on changing the behavior and the habits behind it, it can readily reaccumulate. So when I am working to help people find solutions, I always look to put the solution in the path of the problem so that you have to trip over it, not to use it, and make it as simple as possible. There are people out there that do beautiful color-coded, very detailed systems. I tend to err on the side of keep it simple because I think it's easier for people to adapt. The less change you have to make at one time, the easier it is to keep that change going. And just like exercise or anything else, you have to keep reminding yourself why you're doing it and practice. And so one of the things I would say, if you find that things are starting to, it's called backsliding, and it's really common. People backslide all the time. We'll go in, we'll set up a beautiful, perfect system, and they'll feel great, they'll feel really successful. And then they'll call up 6 months later and say, I don't know what's wrong with me, it's not working, and nothing's wrong with you. We just have to figure out what's causing it. Let's go back and explore. Is it the system? Is it the habits? Is it the routines? So when I talk about less stress, less mess, and making your day go your way, it's, okay, so you've decluttered your closet. Now thinking about how were the clothes coming in? Is there a shopping habit that maybe needs to be thought about? Or is there a yard sale habit? That's a big one because it's such a bargain and you just bring stuff home because it's so cheap. So figuring out what those habits were that were causing the accumulation and trying to identify alternate behaviors. So now your closet is clear and you have a clear table to do something. What do you want to do? What do you really want to do instead of shopping for clothes? And then I talk a lot about setting up the routines for like a 15-minute at the end of every day, or if you're not a night person, at the beginning of every day, to just do a sweep of the house and go through and find everything that's not in its home. And it's funny because everything should have a home in your house, which is kind of a funny concept, but I always say, where does this live? And if it doesn't have a place to live, it is going to live where it's not supposed to live and take up your space. And so as the first step we talked about is sorting, and then purging is the second step, which is where you make decisions and let go of things. And then you assign a home. So you would say, my keys live here. And then you say, okay, to remind me that my keys live here, I'm going to put a beautiful, bright bowl that I see as soon as I walk in the door. Because that's a visual cue reminding me that my goal is to keep my keys here all the time. So that's containerizing. And then equalizing is developing that habit. So every time you walk in the door, you say, okay, my keys go here. Eventually it becomes second nature. You don't think about it. But it does take a little bit of practice. So if you find your keys in your pocket and you're wondering, where the heck are they, and you're 15 minutes late, don't beat yourself up. Just say, okay, today I'm going to remember my keys go here, and just reset. And so that's about the routines. And there's you can introduce routines throughout your day. So we talked about the clothing routine, getting dressed. There's the beauty routine. So a lot of women have a lot of products. And again, going back to decision fatigue, you open that drawer and you have to decide which of these 13 lipsticks that are all like
Right.
5 to 10 years old am I going to use today. But just really picking the simple things that are perfect and good for you and getting rid of the mistakes, the purchase. So many people hold on to stuff because it looked good in the store and then they get it home and it's just not for them. And I just tell people it's okay to let that
Yes.
stuff go. It really is. And once it's gone, all of a sudden you have the perfect shade every time. You don't have to think about it.
Yes.
And then going into the kitchen, if you do the routine of meal planning and preparing in advance and doing your shopping and making sure you have the ingredients that you need. So if you're going to tackle that part of your routine, I would say start by going through and sorting everything in your kitchen, your pantry, getting rid of the stuff that isn't healthy, doesn't suit you, is stale, is expired. You know, the ingredients you bought thinking you'd become a fabulous chef and you didn't. And getting all that stuff out of there. So you're starting with clean, healthy, whole ingredients that are going to nourish your body and your soul and are easy to prepare. And then you have set them up. For lunches, for example, we do mason jar lunches where you can make salads ahead of time in mason jars, or tortellini and pesto, and you know, just put them together and have 5 or 6 in the fridge. So much easier to grab that when you have low willpower and you're more likely to want to stop for fast food or something. Just to know you have a simple, easy solution. So your routine is whatever day of the week works for you. You check what you have, you make your list, you do your shopping, you prep your ingredients, and then it's ready for the week, and you don't have to think. It's lovely.
Wow. Thank you so much. These are such wonderful tips. And I think for me, the whole ideal of decluttering, organizing, setting routines, I think that the bigger picture for me is that it opens up space. It creates a space. It creates time for you to do the things that you love to do. But it also allows you to hear. It allows you to tap into your own inner guidance. It allows you, so when there's so many things competing with your energy, a lot of times you can't hear. You can't hear what's being broadcast to you from divine guidance. And I think just the whole idea of decluttering helps open that channel where you can really start hearing and following your own inner guidance.
I think that's so true. And in fact, that just made me picture there's a retreat center in Richmond where you can go and just be there to connect with your creator. And the rooms have a bed and a desk, and that's it.
Okay.
And I had never really thought about the intentionality of that. But think about nuns and monks and when they're going away to really study and be at one, there's not a lot of stuff to distract them.
Right, exactly.
It's really interesting.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And if you can let people know how they can reach you.
Absolutely. The website is abundanceorganizing.com, and through there you can access email and phone number and read all about abundance organizing.
Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
So, you guys, I hope you really enjoyed this segment with Amanda Scudder. And if you will subscribe, just click the button below, and also check out my website at arvatmclean.com. Until next time, this is Arvat.